Hey, so this week we're going to be talking about chocolate from England. We are going to talk about Pump Street chocolate. I have 2 bars of them right now. They are one of the early bean to bar makers out of England, and let's talk a little bit about them. So, Pump Street was founded in 2010 by Chris and Joanna, the father-daughter team of Chris and Joanna Brennan. They are the actual space, the place where it is in a village called Orford on Suffolk's Heritage Coast in England. I probably pronounced that all wrong, even though I speak English. So Chris is originally from Jamaica. He grew up in Jamaica. I believe his parents are also from Jamaica, but it might be his grandparents too. I can't say that for sure though. But he has some history with Jamaica. He worked at IBM for 30 plus years. And then when he retired, he worked at IBM. And when he worked at IBM, he ended up going back and forth to France and Paris a lot. And when he was there, he loved going to the boulangerie and getting the nice, crusty, fresh French bread. If you've ever been to Paris or France, you know you probably love the boulangeries as well. So in France, technically, to be called a boulangerie, you have to make your bread on site. And it's one of the great things about French food, where you get this fresh bread, crazy fresh, all the time, all over the place. It's delicious. Anyway, so I can see why he would be obsessed with that. So he retires, semi-retires, back in England, can't get his favorite French bread. So he decides that, okay, if I can't get it, I'm gonna make it. So he becomes obsessed kind of with baking sourdough to get that classic crusty crust on the baguette. And he's doing this, and if you've ever practiced anything in baking, you know, you bake and you bake and you just don't have enough people to eat it all. And that's where he got to. He was baking and didn't have enough people to eat it, and he started by having a school fundraiser where they sold their loaves for a school fundraiser. And went great. They raised money for the school. Then they started selling at local markets. Went great. They had lines around the corner for their booth. They often sold out. So hey, the next logical step is to open a bakery. So they moved from having a commercial mixer and a commercial oven in the garage, to actually owning the bakery. But before we talk about the bakery, let's talk about the daughter a little bit, Joanna. So Joanna she went to university, started out in sciences, decided that was not the path she wanted to take, and ended up being a speech and language therapist. And she is described as always being an enthusiastic gourmet and loving fine quality food. She got involved in the baking when she would come home on the weekend and start baking with her dad. So they're doing this together, and he's totally self-taught, both totally self-taught in baking. No food background for either of them. So they get to the point where he's selling like crazy at the markets and decide that they need a dedicated space for the bakery. Now, you've probably seen on Instagram their building. It's a very Instagrammable thing. They bought a 15th century building on the Orford, the village main square on Pump Street, hence the name. It was a building that had sat empty for 20 years. It's a historic building. They refurbished it, and it's pink. And when they bought it, it was pink. But when they bought it, Joanna wanted to actually change the color, and they ended up not changing the color. So let me tell you a little bit about why that pink is interesting. Because in Suffolk, it's actually called Suffolk pink. It's a locally historic color. It started around the 14th century. You'll see lots of buildings around there that color hue-ish. They make that color, interesting enough, by mixing lime wash with a couple different things. One of them being ox blood, one of them being pig's blood, elderberries, blackthorn, something called sloe juice, which is a alcoholic drink. I think it's gin, but I can't say for sure. It's an alcoholic drink made with, it's a fruit that's related to plum. So it has this really reddy color to it. So that's where the color comes from. And it's very historical, locally known to that area. So that's why the pink building. Suffolk is actually known also, it's a rural area, it's an agricultural area, but it's also known for keeping big supermarkets out and really protecting their local producers. So, great, there's a bakery. What about the chocolate? Let's talk about the chocolate. So when they started in 2010, the chocolate was in no way on their radar at all. A few years into it, they had tasted some bean to bar chocolate. They had heard about the movement in the US, the bean to bar movement in the US, and they had kind of noticed that the fermentation processes and the machines involved had some similarity with making sourdough. So they said, they're quoted as saying, after bread, chocolate seemed the next logical step. So in 2012, they started playing around with chocolate, getting some beans, and by 2013, they were selling their first bar. They were already an award-winning bakery, so they had practice at sourcing high quality, really good ingredients to get the best final end product. And that kind of gave them a step up when it came to cacao, because to make fine quality cacao, you have to be able to source the best ingredients, not only the cacao, but the sugar and the cocoa butter and anything else you're going to be putting in there as well. So they were, like I said, they were one of the early bean to bar makers in England. In 2017, their chocolate production got too big to share with the bakery, and they moved the chocolate factory to a building about 3 miles away that is an old refurbished military records building. So, and then I believe they've also recently opened a new just exclusively chocolate store. Okay, so one of the classic pairings with chocolate is bread. And obviously they've got the award-winning bread, they've got the chocolate. Why wouldn't they put them together? So in 2015, they came out with one of their most popular bars, the Sourdough and Sea Salt. This one, actually, you know what? Mine is open, and I might show this to you. I'm actually going to taste this one, but I might do both. Let's flip the camera around, and I'll talk a little bit about this, because it's interesting how they do it. So let's do that. All right, so I've currently got 2 bars from them. They do have seasonal bars. So this one has their sourdough. They bake the sourdough, but they've also had chocolate with gingerbread, chocolate with hot cross buns, chocolate with panettone. I don't know if you say that, panettone or panettone, you know, the Italian Christmas bread with all the fruits in it. So they do have seasonal bars with their bread in it. This one's kind of interesting because they actually incorporate the bread in 2 different ways. So if you take a look at it, I've eaten some of it already. Or maybe, let's take a look at the package. So we have their name, Pump Street Chocolate. That comes from actually what street they're on. They have started putting more information about the maker and the grower and the farmer on their bar. So this is a 66% cacao in what they call their bakery series. From Ecuador, Hacienda Limon, that's the farm. Bakers and chocolate makers in Suffolk. Let's see what else we've got on the back here. Combination of their 2, let's see, award-winning bakery. So yeah, an interesting note, they've recently moved towards making all of their packaging sustainable. So the sticker that held it close, that you can't see because this one's already open, is compostable, as well as this package. They use cacao beans, cane sugar, cocoa butter. They do press some of their own cocoa butter. They do require more, so I know they also purchase cocoa butter for use, but it's all transparent. They're very transparent with their processes, and they also are they do direct trade, so they're good in that way as well. So they have breadcrumbs, which contains wheat, and sea salt in this one. Okay, so this is a beautiful looking bar, nice and shiny, good shine to it. Looks beautifully tempered. If you flip it over, you can see the breadcrumbs as an inclusion. So they actually put the breadcrumbs in two different steps. So when the chocolate is in the, nice snap, hey? When the chocolate is in the grinder, they put the breadcrumbs in and it gets ground up with the cocoa beans. And that gives it a malty kind of flavor. Then they take the bread and they toast it, and then they add it some more when they are in the tempering stage, and that's what gives it the texture that you can see. Let's see if I can get it. That you can see here. It gives the texture to the chocolate. It's almost like a crispy rice, but not really. It's definitely a breadcrumb, but it's quite delicious. And like I said, this is, if not their most popular, one of their most popular bars. So it's very good, but I'm not going to taste that one today. I'm going to try this one. And their bars, some of their bars come in two sizes. So they have this large 70-gram size, or you can get a 20-gram size if you just want to taste something new. Save yourself a little bit of money, or just want to explore a little bit. So this one is, here's the farm and the location. So this is a 75% cacao from Jamaica. Did I say that Chris was from Jamaica? I think I did. They source a lot of their stuff from in around the Caribbean area. And they actually, so Desmond Singh is the name of the farmer from Bachelor Hall's estate. And he took over his grandfather's farm, which was in a little bit of disrepair. And he's now making some fine flavored beans. And I think I read that Pump Street was introduced to Bachelor's Hall estate by the makers at Soma. They have a great bar from Bachelor's Hall as well. So here's our expiration date. Gives you a little tasting notes there, but we're not going to look at those just yet. We've got cocoa beans, cane sugar, organic cocoa butter, and that's it in this bar. So let's open it up. Their larger packages are resealable. The smaller ones are not. That's probably because you're going to eat the whole thing all in one sitting. No problem eating 6 squares in one sitting. So look at this bar. It's so nice and shiny. Can you see that? It's nice and shiny. It's got a good temper. Let's listen to the snap. A good snap. It's got added cocoa butter. A lot of European bars do. They like, I find that European tastes like the addition of the cocoa butter to give it its smoothness. Let's check the aroma and then we'll taste it. Okay, so to get the aroma of this, what I do is, because cocoa butter's melting temperature is close to body temperature, I just rub my thumb on it a little bit to release the aromatics so that I can smell them a little better. On this, I get strong cocoa. I get a little bit of like a floral honey. And when I taste it, I get cocoa right away, a sweetness right away, a honey right away. And then as it melts and it's got a nice smooth mouthfeel, a little bit of mixed berries in there. So like if you were having a mixed berry smoothie. And at the end, in the back of my mouth, a little bit of an alcoholic kind of click. I don't know how to describe it. A little bit of an alcohol flavor at the end. It's nice. It's what I expect for a Bachelor's Hall. But if I were to choose a Pump Street, like right now, I want to eat one of these. I want to eat their sourdough and sea salt. Because honestly, I can get Bachelor's Hall from other makers that will be equally as good as this one. This one is perfectly fine. It's a delightful bar. It's a great single estate. But what's special about Pump Street is they're combining of their own chocolate with their own bread. They're using these two processes that both utilize fermentation to pull out great flavor. And when they've mixed the two in their bars, it's delightful. And this bar is one that doesn't last long in our house. So that is the Pump Street chocolate. Let's flip the camera around and we'll finish up. So that's Pump Street. I'm a fan. I am particularly a fan of their ones where they combine the bread and the chocolate. They actually make, so in their chocolate croissants, they make the batons of chocolate to put in their croissants. So the bakery's coming to the chocolate factory and the chocolate is also going to the bakery. So they're very symbiotic relationship with chocolate and bread at the Pump Street factory. Just a note about the Jamaica Bachelor's Hall. Desmond Singh, he was instrumental in getting some changes, pushing back against the Jamaican cocoa board. So in many, many places, what happened with cocoa was there was a governmental board. Everybody would sell their cocoa to the government. It would all get mixed together, and then the government would sell it off as a commodity. Now, when the craft bean to bar movement came along, you have makers that are making these fine quality beans that are distinctive from commodity beans, distinctive from other genetic varieties, and they want them to stay distinct. And so Desmond was one of the people that pushed back against the Jamaican cocoa board to let him sell his cacao separately as a single estate. And because of that, we are getting this great chocolate and cocoa beans coming out of Jamaica. So that is, I think, all I have to say about Pump Street chocolate. I learned quite a bit researching these guys, from history to all kinds of stuff. So that was fun. If you like learning this stuff along with me, I hope you'll join me by subscribing and liking the video. And next week we'll do another chocolate maker. Thanks. See you then.